Are you ready to go offside? Because it's time for Offside Hockey Talk with your host, James Roberts, and myself, Doug Ireland.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be back in your ears after July 1st, after all the aftershocks, the tremors, the signings, all the money that was spent. We now get to sit down and break down it all. Doug, how are you feeling after July 1st?
Well, there was quite a lot of explosions on July 1st, and I'm not talking about the fireworks, although I guess there were lots of those too.
Well, they're pretty beautiful. I can't get over that. There's another big firework that may go off this evening as we're recording. Kawhi Leonard is in Toronto. He may sign with the Toronto Raptors. I know it is not something you are overly excited for, my friend, but I myself would love to see Kawhi Leonard sign here just for what it would mean for basketball in Canada. But to the bigger news of the night, Doug, I have to extend an apology. It is now 11:08 over here in Nova Scotia. We usually record many hours before this. Unfortunately, I am late this evening, so allow me to extend an apology for this late night edition of Offside Hockey Talk.
Well, do I get an apology for you telling everybody that I'm not excited about the Kawhi trade? Jesus.
Listen, sometimes honesty hurts. Okay, the truth hurts.
Look, it's not that I don't care. I guess it is. I don't really care about basketball. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I did not grow up playing basketball. You know, it's great that the Raptors won. I paid attention to the last few games, but you know, if Kawhi signs in Toronto, great. I fully agree with James. I agree with you, buddy. It'd be good for basketball in Canada, and maybe that'll get people like me more enthusiastic about this kind of stuff happening. But yeah, let's turn back to all these fireworks that we were talking about just a minute ago, and stop talking about the Raptors on a Leafs podcast.
Well, let's just spin the ball, so to speak, in the right direction. Speaking of the ball looks to be in the Leafs' court right now when it comes to Mitchell Marner. Why do I say that, Doug? I say that because there was no offer sheet yet that has come down for Mitch Marner. Most of the teams that had the ability to go after Mitch Marner have already gone out and either re-signed their players, signed the players they were looking for, so the money has been spent. Now, the unfortunate part about this is this could drag on quite a while, but we've seen it's not going to hinder Mr. Kyle Dubas any further, and we've seen what happens when teams go ahead and put out an offer sheet. But let's just keep it on Marner for a second. So for me, I believe this deal gets done before opening night this season. I believe Marner may miss a little bit of training camp over in Newfoundland, but I do believe this deal gets done before the season starts. Doug, where is your head at with this situation?
Well, I think that avoiding what happened with Nylander is in the forefront of everyone's mind still. I feel like that's been beaten to death at this point. How often people have said that we can't let Marner go the way Nylander went. Yeah, I think absolutely that he needs to be signed. I mean, it's like definitely before the season, and I'd say almost as definitely before training camp starts. You know that the only catch is that if I'm Marner, I don't want to miss any of the season because I know that how bad of a impression that will make on Leafs fans. I feel like if I was Marner, I could get away with missing training camp. That doesn't mean me, Doug, thinks that he should or that he will. I just know that if I was trying to negotiate and use something as leverage, that's really the last bit of leverage that I would really want to not. That's the last bit of leverage that I would want to ignore, I guess, so to speak, if I'm Kyle Dubas. Like I could see him not showing up to training camp at all and showing up for their first regular season game. Because, I don't know if you saw the video of PK Subban going through his training routine. Like, it's July, and this guy's training his rear end off trying to get in shape for next season. Like, you got to believe that Marner's not only capable of doing that, but probably already is doing that if he's not playing in some summer league somewhere that that the Leafs keep hidden from everybody. So, like I said, I think that he might end up using training camp as leverage. I don't think Dubas will be happy about it if he does. But it's better than having him miss regular season. I don't see him missing any regular season. If he does, then I can't see that's just with how bad the whole thing with Nylander went last year, I can't see that being a acceptable option from Kyle Dubas's camp or from Marner's camp. Quite frankly, that's reputation damaging. They want to avoid that at all costs, both sides.
Well, definitely. Another key factor to the whole situation here is the fact that Cody Ceci is an RFA with arbitration rights and probably will be going to arbitration, even though it was reported there's a 1-year, $4.5 million deal on the table, verbally agreed to apparently, but nothing signed, sealed, and delivered. Also, you have Alex Kerfoot, who is an unrestricted, or not unrestricted, an RFA as well, that will be going to arbitration. So you may want to get those numbers in before you seriously hand out your last offer to Mitchell Marner.
Yeah.
So wait for those numbers to come down. That may help out the situation. And, like I said, the fear of the offer sheet is not there. But speaking of offer sheets, one did happen from Big Daddy Guns, Mr. Bergevin, over in Montreal. He tried to use that Molson muscle, so to speak, to lure away Mr. Aho, who signed the deal that is very front-loaded. And, of course, Don Waddell said they would use all the time in the world to try to limit what the Habs could do further. But Tom Dundon, who was not happy and is the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, came out and said that it was kind of BS the way they did it. He felt that the agent sold Montreal a bill of goods, basically telling Montreal that if you do this, this is the way to lure Aho away because Tom Dundon is cheap and won't pay it. Well, he paid the piper, and Sebastian Aho is now a part of the Carolina Hurricanes. Doug, I want to know, what do you feel about the Montreal Canadiens doing the offer sheet? It is something that is in the collective bargaining agreement, not a tool a lot of people use, but does this open the door? And do you see either the Canes being vengeful and doing something themselves, maybe towards Montreal next season or maybe a season down the line? Or is this a simple, hey, it's done, it's over with, let's move on?
I'm tempted to say the former, except for the fact that, to me, the offer sheet was so low that it's questionable. The entire thing is just questionable. Why would you offer? They had to have known that Carolina was going to match that offer sheet. There's no way that they thought that, oh yeah, this will really keep Carolina from signing this. What were they doing? I don't get it. I was actually going to ask you what your take on. It was
the bonus money. It was the bonus money that they were hoping that Carolina wouldn't be able to afford within the first 12 months. I think it's something like $20 million in the first 12 months that we paid out in bonus money. It's the structure the Leafs are using in a lot of their contracts, hence the reason why they're able to kind of lure guys and not even just that, just be able to get them to sign. Like Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Janssen, most of their money is paid July 1st, and I think it's like $800,000 after that or whatever it is left over for the player to get beyond the signing bonus. So that's the deal they tried to do with Aho, was giving him the huge signing bonuses on this part of the deal, so he'd get one now, and then he'd get one 12 months from now on July 1 again. So they were thinking Tom Dundon wouldn't want to reach in his pocket and pull out that money and pay for Sebastian Aho like that. But Tom Dundon said, you know what, no, enough of your BS. Okay, we're going to pay. And Aho is going to be a Carolina Hurricane. The AAV was not what they were trying to use to lure him away from Carolina. It was the signing bonuses. And that's what I mean about the owner selling Montreal a bill of goods and saying, if you structure the contract this way, then he will sign the deal with you guys, and Carolina will not match the deal. But of course, we know they have.
I mean, that's even taking all that into account. I mean, it's not like Carolina or Dundon are destitute and don't have the cash to pay for arguably one of their best players, possibly their best player.
But Dundon's got a big set of brass ones on him, just to interrupt you for a second. And it's true, he does. And a lot of GMs and a lot of management throughout the NHL wish they could be as brash as Tom Dundon is. He's the guy who didn't want to pay that much for a general manager. I believe he started out at $800,000 a year was what he was willing to pay some GMs, like I believe it was Mike Fuda and a couple of others that were applying for the job, the salary compensation was not that high, hence the reason why they retained Don Waddell. But Dundon is like that. He doesn't like to pay. He also doesn't like defense either. So if you're looking for a defender, NHL, just hit up Mr. Don Waddell and offer him a shiny forward of some type, and I'm sure you can lure away a Dougie Hamilton or even a Brett Pesce. And I'm not being facetious there.
I mean, let me ask you your opinion on this then. If you're Carolina, give me a second, James. Sorry. So let me ask you this then: if you're Carolina, how much of you're never gonna make a deal with Montreal again, right? Or if you're Carolina, or if you're any owner in the league, how much damage has this done to Montreal's ability to make trades around the league? Like how
I'd
often?
say zero.
You'd say zero because this is only the third offer sheet in 12 years or something. So, and we were speculating that anybody that offer sheets Marner, you're basically guaranteeing that Dubas isn't going to make a deal with you. And I'm just wondering if you think that that's going to apply to this situation as well.
Well, the reason why I say it's a little different in this situation, again, I go back to the agent, and that's who Tom Dundon and the Carolina Hurricanes are apparently more pissed off at because of what they did and the way that they paid it forward and painted a picture for the Montreal Canadiens. The next part about it is you have a GM in Ray Shero of the New Jersey Devils coming out and saying, I don't give a shit about the gentleman's agreement on offer sheets. They're there to be used. We will use them if we feel the necessary need to. So that's another GM who didn't use one, but came out and said it's bullshit about the gentleman's agreement on it. So, and then just the ramped up, hyped up speculation about offer sheets, it's something that's coming out of a lot of guys' mouths. What I see, and I've heard this said other places, so it's not just my idea born out of my head, but I see teams now starting to want to offer sheet lower or middle tier players that maybe teams don't want to pay. Like you look at a Kasperi Kapanen or an Andreas Johnson on our books, a team offer sheeting Cappy at $5 million. Do you think the Leafs would have paid that? Maybe not. They may have walked away and took the compensation because of the way they are with the cap. And that may be the way that teams use this in the future to kind of not screw over their counterparts, but be able to put pressure on teams that have the bigger salary players that won't be able to pay these mid-tier guys $5 or $6 million, and the compensation isn't that huge. So that's the way I think the offer sheet will be used going forward. But like I said, I don't think that Montreal damaged themselves doing this. It was a tool in the box. They had the space. They struck out on Duchesne. They struck out on another key forward, so they went the next route, which was the Aho offer sheet. Their original target, believe it or not, Doug, was actually Braden Point, and Braden Point has the same agent as Sebastian Aho. So they went from Braden Point, and his agent was able to steer them to Sebastian Aho. So Montreal's target all along was an offer sheet, was going to be, like I said, Braden Point, but they moved on to Sebastian Aho. So it doesn't matter. GMs are thinking about this. Like I said, I'll go back again to the Ray Shero. We've seen it happen before where Ryan O'Reilly was offer sheeted by Calgary. Nothing bad was ever said about Calgary. He ended up getting the deal signed in Colorado for the 2 years. Then we know what happened. They flipped him to Buffalo. Again, same thing with the Philadelphia Flyers when they offer sheeted Shea Weber. Didn't seem like there was any ill will there. Shea Weber signed a long-term deal and stayed in Nashville, eventually being dealt to Montreal. So, I don't see any long-term ill effects, but who knows? Montreal right now has a huge amount of cap space that they're not looking to spend. They're not looking to make foolish deals. So there are a lot of RFAs out there. Who knows if Bergevin decides to pull another RFA offer sheet out of the hat, or sits on the cap sheet and cap that they have and try to weaponize it for other reasons. But to answer the root of your question, I do not see any ill marks against Mr. Bergevin of the Montreal Canadiens.
So then,
Plus, I mean, I wouldn't want to meet him in an alleyway either. You see the biceps on that guy?
so then, the flip side of that question is: do you think this opens the door for more offer sheets this season or in the future?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's going to be offer sheets for the superstar players, because if you look at the way that that's structured, if you offer sheet a superstar player into that stratosphere where you have to pay them $10 or more million, you're not only limiting yourself with the cap on your team, but you're also giving up those 4 first-round picks. So you're losing 2 valuable commodities. You know, there's a saying now: you have your superstars and your cap space. Those are your 2 most valuable commodities. But I would put first-round picks in there, because we all know what happened with the Maple Leafs first-round picks. When they go out and make trades, they usually turn out to be pretty darn good players. Mr. Scott Niedermayer, I'm looking at you, and I'm also looking at Mr. Tyler Seguin as well. But no, I see it being used for mid-tier players, like I said. That's the way this could be used as an effective tool for teams, you know, maybe overpaying a little bit for a mid-tier guy, but also exposing them to maybe better minutes, better power play situations with the team that is doing the offer sheet. So you look at a Kasperi Kapanen, just throwing out on the top of my head, per se the Pittsburgh Penguins offered him $5 million, and then you have Kasperi Kapanen on a line with Sidney Crosby, Cappy, and who else? You know what I mean? That's a huge boost in who he's playing with.
Not Phil
So you
Kessel.
look at the mid-tier guns. Definitely not hot dog eater, no. And you know what? Good on Phil. He gets to go to Arizona and play for Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
That's someone he likes. But to answer your question, I think that GMs are going to start wising up and using this tool, right? Because like I said, you have your superstar players on your team, and then teams have to try to fit everybody else in. And that's where you can squeeze teams to be able to get a player that is half decent. And I keep going back to Cappy and Yanni, even though they're signed. Those kind of players there that know they can chip in for 20, maybe more, if they're put in a better position. And then teams are not willing to pay that much money. And also the compensation for offer sheeting a player at that level isn't that high either. But it seems like it hasn't gotten to that point with GMs yet, but I think that's where it's going. And again, that's not my thought. That is one that is out there. It's been said numerous times now. So we'll see in the coming years.
That we will. So me and you have been pretty big fans of Patrick Marleau ever since he came to the Maple Leafs. So
Marleau zone, baby.
All about the Marleau zone. We've exited the Marleau zone, but there may actually be a way to extend it now that he was released. Was he outright released? I can't remember.
He was bought out.
He was bought out. So he could sign with the Maple Leafs again. And presumably if he were to do that, it would be for the league minimum. Do you think that is something that might happen? Do you think it's something that should happen? Or do you think he's just going to go home to San Jose?
He's going home to San Jose.
You think he's going to play a full
his
season?
family back there.
Do you think he'll play a full season in San Jose, or is just as like a finish out his career in a San Jose uniform?
You know what? I don't know. It's the same kind of thing with Joe Thornton, right? Joe Thornton keeps coming back every single year. He doesn't sign till later in the offseason. If Patrick Marleau does go to the San Jose Sharks, everybody knows it's going to have to be on a lesser deal. But he is going back to San Jose. They will fit him in. They will find a way to make it happen. That is rest assured. He will finish his career as a San Jose Shark. I have nothing but good things to say about Patty. I think, like I said in my post in my video, and again, thank you for everyone for checking it out. Pretty awesome to click on a video that you made and see the amount of views that you get now. It's kind of blows you away. But I said, Patty taught our players, the young guys, how to be gentlemen on and off the ice, how to play properly. Not to mention the guys on an Ironman streak that is insane. So, the preparation his body goes through, the preparation he goes to get ready, the things he does in the offseason, the way he eats, the way he trains, all of that rubs off on our guys. So I can't thank Patrick Marleau enough for the lasting imprint that he probably left on these guys and the lasting effect that he'll leave, even though he only played 2 seasons as a Maple Leaf, the lasting effect he had in the city. That guy was infectious. I don't care what anybody says. I love what he did for the team. I love what he did for our guys. and I was happy to have him as a Maple Leaf.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo all that. Personally, if I'm Patrick Marleau, I'm wondering, do I have 1 or 2 years left in my career, or do I still have 5 maybe? And 16 goals at 39 years of age. The guy could be playing for another 4 or 5 years easily. And there's no one in the league that's going to turn down a 15, 16 goal scorer, 40-point getter for like $1 million. I'd go all the way up probably to 2 or 3 million, and it'd still easily be worth it to sign a guy like Patrick Marleau, just not only for the goal scoring and the points, but for all the experience you just mentioned that he can pass down to players. I think that there's a chance he could still sign with the Leafs. I don't know that it's so locked in stone that he's going back to San Jose. I don't think I've heard anything about him like flying to San Jose, flying to California or anything, or setting up living arrangements back there. So I could still see it happening, quite honestly. The only guy that really is going to know, I think, at this point is going to be Marleau. But if you're Kyle Dubas and Marleau, let's say Marleau approaches you, or even just the thought springs up in your mind, are you going to go and try and make a deal with Marleau, or are we kind of past that point now?
I would say you're past that point. You have younger players that are vying for a spot. And to touch on something he said there, he has set up base camp. His family has moved back to SoCal. So they are all there. That is that was part of the push to get him traded. That's the reason why they were trying to get him out of Toronto. The family couldn't adjust. They didn't. Well, not say couldn't. They didn't adjust well to being here. So they moved back, and that was a driving factor in trying to get Patty moved, and then of course bought out so he can move back and be closer to his family again. So yeah, I do think he's going to San Jose. I do not think he's coming back to the Maple Leafs.
All right. I just, we had so much fun with the Marleau Zone. I was hoping I'd get to use the music one more time, but I guess it'll have to be retired.
No. Don't worry. We'll touch on where you can use that music. There's a couple spots that we might be able to use it coming up here in the show. But a couple of other exciting things that, a lot of people kind of bash me over the head about, but I was set in stone that they were done. And I knew that these deals were happening, and I had no problem with them happening. And, I had no problem taking my lumps because they weren't officially signed. But I was confident in Kasperi Kapanen at $3.2 million and Mr. Andreas Johnsson at 3.4. Both are awesome deals for the two. If you look at that, it's $6.6 million for two players who score you 20 goals, who play on the penalty kill, who only can keep getting better in my eyes right now with the ability to play up and down the lineup for you. So you're getting both of those players for one Patrick Marleau price. That is freaking awesome.
Yep.
I'm going to say one thing about this deal.
Yeah. And
it was pointed out by someone. I can't find the tweet. I wish I could. But it just shows and it was a reporter for another team, I think. Oh, NHL by Matty. Look him up, guys, on Twitter. He said it shows that the Toronto Maple Leafs value Andreas Johnsson more as a player than they do Kasperi Kapanen because they paid him 0.2 more than Cappy. Why do you have to go say that, Matty? Come on now. Come on now. He's a beat writer, guys, for the Edmonton Oilers. For you who don't know and don't follow other podcasts who read his tweets regularly on air, I found that one just a little bit of a, oh, come on now, get over yourself because your team's not doing anything. But anyways, no, Doug, that's a sweet deal for those two, and I'm very happy to have them back locked up for at least 3 years for Cappy and 4 for Mr. Johnson.
I mean, I'd say that it's a case where Kapanen has been less consistent, and so he gets a bit less money, more rather than attributing how much the team values one over the other. I think that's definitely more of a case that Johnsson has been steady, Johansson, Johnny, whatever the hell you want to call him. He's been steadily improving, whereas Kapanen has kind of been a bit rocky, bit up and down. Even me and you were questioning some.
You could say he's Yanni on the spot.
And with that, we're going to move on.
So the next big bit in business that we didn't get to talk about because obviously we've had some things going down. The Leafs get out of another contract. They deal Nikita Zaitsev and Connor Brown with a pick to Ottawa for... Oh, and also they deal Carconi as well to Ottawa for Harper, Ceci, a third, and Leszczuk or Fezchuk or whatever you said it was.
Yeah, I'm not as enthusiastic about this deal, quite honestly.
I'm very, very excited about this deal
You
for
are.
many reasons. But you go ahead and you tell me why you're not excited. Then I'll tell you why you should be excited.
So the reason I don't like the deal is because Zaitsev is a excellent defenseman. As much as it might pain many Leafs Nation people to admit it, he got a lot more blame than he deserved. Even though he had way too much pressure put on him in Toronto, and I'm not talking about fans in Leafs Nation. I'm specifically talking about the amount of minutes the guy was expected to play and the situations he was put in. He's going to excel in Ottawa. He's going to excel. We're going to be regretting getting rid of Nikita Zaitsev to Ottawa. But I could have lived with all of that very, very easily. That would not have bothered me, any part of that, because the guy didn't want to be here. He doesn't want to be here. What bothers me is that we gave up Connor Brown. Was his cap hit really so big that we needed that extra, for what we were getting out of Brown? Me and you complained a lot the past, I'd say even 2 years, about him underperforming and struggling to find what his real role is. So he may have more room to do that on Ottawa. So I'd say this is a great deal. If you're Zaitsev or Brown, you have to be happy. Even if Brown wanted to stay with the Leafs or whatever, you have to be happy with this deal. You're going to have more room to expand and grow as a player, and so much more less intense responsibility, if that makes sense. Like, you're not going to have everybody breathing down your neck the way they do in Leafs Nation. I know Ottawa fans can get a little crazy too, but it's just not the same.
Hi, Brian 5 or 6.
Yeah. But for Harper and Ceci, I don't know. Convince me, James. Convince me why this is a better deal than I feel like it is.
All right, so this deal here, you look at it one way for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, you have Harper, who can buck it up a little bit, right-handed shot. You have Ceci, another defenseman, right-handed shot. The good thing about Ceci is he is a RFA that has arbitration, as we talked about earlier. So if he does not sign the one-year deal for $4.5 million, bear in mind that is the exact cap hit that Nikita Zaitsev had, but then they can walk away from him after 1 year. Zaitsev had 5 more years at that cap hit and was a player that Mike Babcock and Zaitsev did not want to use in the offensive zone. Zaitsev and everybody else has said themselves, once Zaitsev got to the O zone, he was told to get off the ice and on the bench. So obviously something about his O game didn't sit well with Babcock, which limits the use of a player. So put that aside for a moment. You have Ceci, someone who can very easily fit into your bottom 4. You have Harper that can fill in for depth. But here's the best part about Ceci. Per se, he does want to go and walk himself into arbitration and get an award that is too rich for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They can just walk away from him and have that cap space. Then they can go out and get another player. A lot of people are saying that if he does go out and goes and has a huge cap hit and we walk away, we will sign Jake Gardiner back to the team because he wants to come back, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. But that is one setup right there, Doug, where you can already see the wheels in motion. You only keep Ceci for a maximum of 1 year. A lot of people say they don't see Ceci playing even a single game with the Toronto Maple Leafs because the Maple Leafs will walk away from his ARB award. So that right there fills you up with cap space, and you get Harper, and then you also get the other gentleman, plus you get a 3rd round pick. Here's my thing with Connor Brown. Connor Brown was not going to get a chance to move up in this lineup. He would get a chance right now with Zach Hyman out, potentially, but again, there are younger players at a cheaper hit, like a Bracco and other people coming into this lineup who are going to need ice time. So Connor Brown, unfortunately, is a cap casualty, is a sweetener in this deal, but again, he was a player that was either going to play on our 4th line, which we both said, Doug, you just said it yourself, couldn't figure out how to figure that role properly, or he was going to be a player that would just play up and down our lineup and we wouldn't get the consistency because he wouldn't be playing with proper line mates all the time. So I'm happy for Connor Brown getting a chance to go to Ottawa and play in their top 6 and hopefully be a good player for them. So that's the deal to me in a nutshell. Like I said, if we can walk away from CC, free up cap space, and get another better defenseman in return, no problem for me there.
I mean, what I keep telling myself is that it's a right-handed defensemen are so hard to find. It's like finding a left-handed pitcher for baseball. It's just they are not a dime a dozen. They are difficult to find that are going to play at an acceptable NHL level. So if we get one right-handed defenseman out of the deal, then I guess I'm all right with it. I just don't like the idea of trading a guy to free up cap space, and that's the primary benefit we get out of a deal. I'm not crazy about that, but whatever.
Well, that's the reason why we got rid of Zaitsev. I mean,
yeah.
Zaitsev and Brown, like I said, Zaitsev, 5 more years. The Leafs weren't using him to his full capabilities. We know he's a power play specialist. He was not going to get a sniff on the Maple Leafs when you have guys like Gardner and Riley, and now you still have Muzzin, and now you got Tyson Barrie coming in, which we will talk about a lot in a moment, because we're going to be celebrating Tyson Tuesdays on this podcast. I don't care. But here we go. We're going to keep moving on with the theme. So the next thing, before we get into Mr. Spezza, there's 2 supposed deals the Maple Leafs have signed. They are on cap friendly, but the details are not confirmed as of yet. But it is Nick Shore on a 1-year deal, believably in the range of $700,000, and Nick Agostino as well on a 2-year deal, looking to be around $700,000 to $800,000. I don't know why those deals are not confirmed yet, but they are on cap friendly, and they are both linked to the Leafs. And guess what, Doug? You can already look on Twitter and you can see people battling over if it's going to be Nick Shore or Jason Spezza in the 3rd or 4th line spot.
Spezza.
I'm not kidding you. So
It's going to be Spezza.
we'll look at those. We'll look at those because I know before the show you were like, why are we signing these guys? Here's my theory. Babcock challenged last year, whether he meant it maliciously or not. He's actually said in the offseason he didn't mean it to be aggressive or sound passive-aggressive, but he mentioned the Leafs did not have the depth. Well, now you have Nick Batan, Nick Shore, Nick Agostino. You have all these Nicks, but you also have all these centers. So you still have Freddie the Goat there. You still have John Tavares. You still have Austin Matthews, and we will touch on Spezza here in a moment. My thing is, I think they finally wanted to build center depth, and we know Babcock loves centers. And what better way to do that than sign a few guys, one in Nick Shore, who's a little bit more of a rugged, not going to score you a whole lot, but could probably play a good defensive role, and then Agostino as well, same kind of mold. I look at those deals and I say to myself, this is giving Babcock the tools that he needs. We'll talk about the other trades after, but this roster, if you look at it with everything that's been done, this roster is built for Babcock to say, here, succeed with this. This is what you wanted. You wanted right-handed defensemen and left-handed defensemen, you got them. They're there. You wanted more center depth, you got it. It's there. You wanted this, you wanted that, it's all there. So what is your excuse this year? That's what I think it's going to be. And they went out and they signed Hackstall, who used to be Philly's head coach, to be an assistant coach on this bench. They extended Sheldon Keefe. You don't make all those moves without trying to spur and light a fire under Mike Babcock's ass and let him know, I've given you all the tools you've asked for, but I've also brought in a couple safeguards in case you can't get it done. Now, I know you got a different theory, so go spill your guts.
I don't remember what my theory was, but I can tell you that what you're saying is making more sense when I consider that Austin Matthews has been injured for a significant gap of the season, 2 seasons in a row, and the fact that we just traded away Nazem Kadri. We need someone to play those positions. I'd say it's a good bet that all of our centers aren't going to make it all the way through the year, so now we have more of that. I don't see anyone other than Spezza ending up as the, really though, unless the guy's so old he can't skate or take a face off, who the heck else are we going to put, even with Shore, Agostino, whoever else, Kerfoot, none of them are as good as Spezza, even at the low end of his prime. Not at taking face-offs. I think that's the big reason they signed Spezza, is they needed someone they could rely on for face-offs. So yeah, I don't.
Well, let's touch on him right quick, buddy. Signing Jason Spezza, I don't care what anybody says. I know, and I was talking to Rob Ellis about this a little bit on Twitter. Obviously he's not as fleet of foot as he used to be, but you put guys on his wing like a Kasperi Kapanen and a Trevor Moore. I mean, those guys can fly up the ice, get the puck in the zone, and Spezza can trail up and be the setup man that he is. That's one way you can neutralize it. Again, I'm very excited to have Jason Spezza come.
Yep.
As soon as we sign, or as soon as the rumors started rumbling, you can look at my Twitter feed. It was well before the July 1 window opened. When everybody said, Spezza's coming to Leafs, the first thing that I said was, Kadri's gone. Kadri is gone. And everybody was just excited to have this insane center depth. I knew Kadri was gone. And lo and behold, my friend, we deal Nazem Kadri, Calle Rosen to the bloody Colorado Avalanche. And we get Mr. Tyson Barrie Tuesdays himself. And we get Alexander Kerfoot, which is a player I'm very high on. I was high on him when New Jersey had him, and they let him go over and sign with Colorado. And obviously, we know what happened. Colorado's guy, Will Butcher, went over to New Jersey. But I was high on him then. This guy can go out and get you your 20, 30, maybe 40 points. He's a good centerman. He can take face-offs. He's got a little bit of edge to his game. But here's the kicker in the deal, Doug, that makes me so, so happy. Tyson Barrie at $2.75 million because Colorado retains 50% of his salary. Holy crap.
Yeah, boy, did we get our money's worth out of Kadri. That's just ridiculous. And Calle Rosen. I feel like that a lot of that has to be with them putting a lot of value on Rosen. Part of that worries me because it means maybe we missed something that their scouts saw. I don't know how what we did to make Joe Sakic want to help the Toronto Maple Leafs so much. But if I'm a Colorado fan, I would be a little upset at this deal. That being said, this is another case where I have a feeling Kadri's just going to bloom in Colorado, and all of a sudden we're going to, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to be double thinking this deal, especially if although I don't see it happening, especially if Barrie and Kerfoot don't work out. But I have a feeling that's not going to be an issue either. I think we're going to be happy with this deal either way. It's just going to be a grass is greener sort of situation. But again, another situation where a Leafs player is being put into a situation where he wasn't getting enough ice time, maybe wasn't getting quite the fair shake that maybe that player thought that they deserved. I feel like the onus is on Kadri now. He has no excuses going to Colorado and underperforming at all. So
you want to hear the best part about this entire deal, Doug?
Yeah.
Now John Tavares and Austin Matthews should get the ice time they deserve because you no longer have Nazem Kadri you need to try to appease because Jason Spezza understands that he's on the tail end of his career, doesn't need the minutes because he's not a star. Alex Kerfoot, Nick Shore, you go down the list. Those guys understand their role and their time on the ice.
Yeah, there's nobody that could conceivably be a second center, a first line or second line center, especially above Matthews, and there's no one even close. Kadri, you can make the argument occasionally, right? But no, not anymore.
Well, there's another thing that almost happened. Mr. Nazem Kadri obviously has got a life going on in his life. He's about to have a baby, or did just have a baby. He got married last year. The initial deal was Kadri going to Calgary for TJ Brody. I don't think that would have made me as excited. Chris Johnson said on another podcast that he didn't know all the specifics, but obviously it was Kadri and Brody were the two main components. I'm not excited about that as much as I am as getting Tyson Tuesday. But you know what? It's crazy to think how many pokers Kyle Dubas had in the fire for making things happen. So it's exciting to see the cojones Dubas has right now, especially with Marner still twisting in the wind right now. He's gone out and done all these things. So the question I have to ask you, Doug, how do you feel about this team as a whole?
So the end of the season, we said that this was going to be the summer of Dubas. Like this summer is all on Dubas. He has a job or had a job. I don't know how you feel at this point. To make sure this team didn't significantly disimprove itself. Like it needed to stay at around the same level of compete, at around the same level of skill level retention, which we knew was going to be next to impossible. That's why we had the Marlowe zone. I wouldn't say that we're quite where we were last year in terms of the scale of talent that we had available to us. However, going into this year, you got to think Nylander's already locked up, so we don't have to worry about him. If he manages to get Marner locked up, we have a team that has no reason not to succeed again. So I've gone from maybe they aren't going to make the playoffs next year and they're going to stink because they gave away so many good players to, well, now we're looking like a strong team that could walk into the playoffs and do some serious damage, get through the first few rounds at least. I'd say my expectations are back to them at least. Like, okay, they have to make the second round this year, right? Like, they can't not make the second round. All this talent contributes to that goal. And if we had somehow, like, in some magical fantasy world, we'd stuck with all of the exact same players, maybe we'd be a slightly better chance, but that's just not a realistic goal. We knew right from the start the Marlowe zone was not sustainable. That was a temporary thing. All of our guys are another year older, another season older. I would not have been that upset if we had stayed relatively the same. I thought that we were a good hockey team. I thought that the basis of why we lost against Boston was more attitude and effort. Yeah, so this I feel like that's all the moves that have been made are going to improve that. Like we know Zaitsev didn't really want to be here. We knew that there was just logically, that there were at least a couple of guys that resented Kadri getting himself suspended from another playoff series. Like that's, like, we don't know that for sure, but like to hear that come out of someone on the team's mouth would not have surprised me in the least. That's gone. All that, I feel like a lot of that internal conflict that they were dealing with is gone. Aside from that, he's the last Brian Burke player now. This is genuinely a quote unquote brand new Maple Leafs team, even though like guys have been on the team for 2 or 3. There's no one left from that era now. That's over. Those days are over. I guess we just gotta hope they don't sign James Reimer, but or maybe you do hope. I don't know. Regardless, we're there. We have not significant. We are not that much worse off than we were at the end of last year, and it's not like having all that talent available to us got us anywhere, anyways. And I feel like every decision we made has been a lot, or at least not every decision, but the majority of these signings and pickups are all character based and attitude based, and at least that is factoring into the decisions of why we picked them. So I'm happy. I'm also happy that to me we didn't go out and get some big superstar that's like, we signed John Tavares, people started planning the parade already. You're not going to do that because we signed Nick Shore. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm happy we have him, but I'm not saying, yeah, we have Nick Shore, now we're going to win the cup. None of the pickups we made, even Barry, none of these pickups are that type of signing, that type of deal. So I think from that perspective, it'll help keep expectations low, and that'll make it easier for these guys to excel in the roles that they know they can do good at, that they've done good in other teams. The majority of these guys are NHL veterans. They're not rookies, so they'll mesh well with our guys that now have 2, 3, 4 seasons of experience. So I'm all right. I'm happy.
Well, I'm the other foot, Doug, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
I think expectations are through the roof for this squad.
No. See, if we say expectations are lower, then people will think expectations are lower, and they'll have lower expectations. That's how Leafs media works, right?
We dictate the pace, right? But no, I think that now expectations are even higher. You have a better D-core, arguably a better forward corps than you had last year. With Kerfoot coming in, Spezza coming in,
really?
Players playing in their actual positions. Well, you look, again, like I said, now you're going to have the benefit of rolling out there Austin Matthews more, giving him more time to play. John Tavares, more time to play. So the top 2 lines will have more time out there. Will that generate more offense? Will that generate more points, more goals for those 2 lines? I definitely think so. Having your 3rd and 4th line play the minutes they're supposed to play, also exposing them to the other team's 3rd and 4th line more. So a guy like Kasperi Kapanen may have more chances to get more goals, being set up by a good setup guy like Jason Spezza. You look at your fourth line, it'll be a kind of true blue, hard-working fourth line, whoever decides to round it out, whether you go with a Moore, whether you go with Agostino, it goes on and on and on. You look at a guy like Kerfoot, who can probably play with Spezza and Kapanen, to be honest with you. So arguably, if you look at point in from point out from last year, you trade Zaitsev and you put Barrie. Barrie had more points than Zaitsev. You lose Gardner. So again, you have guys like CC and them coming in. No, they're not the same point threshold as Jake Gardner. But again, point in, point out, you look at Kerfoot and Kadri. If you look at just last season alone, Kerfoot outscored Kadri. So those points are already there. Can Kapanen and Janssen and everybody else, like you said, improve? Yeah. So, I think the forward corps will look better this year than it did last year. It'll be utilized better this year than it was last year, because there won't be the excuse of, we had to find Kadri some ice.
Yeah.
We had to run the power play this way to give everybody their cookies. No, now you have two wicked power play quarterbacks in Barrie and Riley, which can either be spread out on a power play, or you can muck it up a little bit, have 3 forwards, 2D on one, and then 4 forwards, 1D and Muzzin on the other. Really mess with the team, because then what do? Do you put out forwards on there that you're trying to score a shorthanded goal when you have 2 stalwart defensemen like Barrie and Riley out there? Or do you just try to wait for the second unit? Now you're starting to play, pushing buttons. So the other thing, Doug, I give an incomplete grade right now as well, because Marner's not there, don't know what his cap is, don't know what's happening with CC, haven't got a number on Kerfoot, but also Chris Johnson, he said that Gardner wants to come back. He wants to find a way to come back to the Maple Leafs, and that's why he has not signed a deal as of yet. Now, obviously that would have to be, like CJ said, on a hometown kind of discount, but Gardner's not ruling that out. So when Nick Kypreos talked about the hometown discount that he would sign, it was at $5 million. So if you walk away from Cody Ceci, which you were already planning to have on your books at 4.5, and you bury another contract in the minors, there's that $5 million. The only sticking point would be term. Don't know what the term Gardner wants is. Back when Kypreos said it, it was the full 7 years. Obviously, I think the Leafs can still do that, but who knows where it goes. But Gardner still very well could be a Toronto Maple Leaf. And then if you look at that defense corps, Doug, that really gets me excited. You start talking about Riley and Barrie and Muzzin and Gardner and Dermott. That right there, 5 defensemen before you even start getting into your depth guys, is a pretty damn good defense corps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing I'll say is that I think we actually are sort of agreeing with each other in that I think if you look at individually the players that we've lost versus the players we picked up, you might be a little disappointed. You might be. But the flip side of that is that they're going to fit in with this team much better than the guys that we got rid of. Like, especially guys, again, I'm going back to this over and over again because it really bugs me. But Zaitsev saying he didn't want to be in Toronto, that bothers me. Because that means he didn't just start not wanting to be in Toronto. He never wanted to be in Toronto. You don't suddenly change your mind because the season ends and whatever. That's a guy that did not want to be here. So that's one less. Those types of moves are not quantifiable. Like, you're not going to take $500,000. Like, you know what I mean? That's not going to add value to a player. It's not going to take value off of a player, except in the dressing room and on the ice. So, yeah, I think from the perspective of, are we a better team? I'm going to agree with you if we look at it on a team basis. And again, same thing as you, is that's dependent on us making sure we sign Mitch Marner, possibly CC as well. But yeah, I'd say that we're better off as a team, even if we may have looked like pure numbers on paper that we're worse off. I feel like that's a good take. In terms of Gardner, if he re-signs in Toronto, you as a Leaf fan are obligated to love the hell out of this guy because he has gone through the shit. All right? He has gone through people sending him death threats on his social media. He's gone through just having like his reputation dragged through the mud. This is a guy that if he was playing for, let's say, the LA Kings, he would be considered a superstar in this league, undeniably. Up there, probably, like, even, I remember him from a few years ago and people directly comparing Gardner to Riley. That's not changed. He's still that good. This is another guy that I don't know. If he still wants to stay in Toronto after all of that, boy, Leafs Nation better get behind him if he does sign here. If not, I honestly, if I was Jake Gardiner, I would not want to continue to play in Toronto. People giving me death threats, like that's crazy. How are you gonna play for fans that literally want to kill you? Like, so if I'm Jake Gardiner, I wouldn't want to sign in Toronto, and yet he does. So I'm behind him. I want him on the team at this point. I've probably flip-flopped my opinions. I still think that he might be better off as a forward in the back of my mind, though I'm going to start saying that less and less loudly as he gets older. No, I like the idea of getting Jake Gardiner back. I certainly like the idea of re-signing Jake Gardiner more than picking up James Reimer.
Well, you won't get any Reimer out of me. I love Reimer. Got a hung picture on the wall right now that's autographed by Mr. Reimer, but no, I think that ship has sailed. But Doug, it feels good to talk about all this stuff the way that we talk about it. The only thing I can say that's left to say is it October yet, my friend? Is it October?
No. You know how I can tell is because Marner hasn't signed yet.
There's the truth. Well, buddy, thanks again for another great episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.